Oh, hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 300, I am very lucky, privileged to have Elliot Hasoon on the podcast. He is, well, now this is the thing. He has many hats, but the main hat he wears, he's a body transformation coach, as well as a podcaster, and you could say YouTuber. And he doesn't like to admit it, but he is a bit of a digital nomad. When I looked up here, everything I looked up on this chap, it was like, I'm in the UK. And where are you coming from today, Elliot?
I am coming from Mexico City, a little bit far from the UK, and a little bit of a contrast in temperature as well, I have to say.
Uh, yes, he just had to rub that temperature. No, yeah, it's been sunny and nice over here. Leave us alone. Yes. I have to ask, how did what put you on this path of fitness in the first place?
It's a long story, meanwhile, but let me dive in straight from the beginning.
Mm,
I was not a genetically gifted child from the perspective of being in shape. I wasn't one of those kids who had those abs from day one. It wasn't my forte at all. It was more around having a bit of a chubby stomach, even though I loved sport. I loved to be active, to be completely honest. But in the sense of genetics, in the sense of maybe my nutrition when I was younger, I was holding a little bit more weight than I would have liked to. And for some reason or another, I had this awareness that I was pretty uncomfortable within my body. There was names said in PE changing rooms and all those different type of things that you experience as a young teenager. And I was saying recently on another podcast, I credit my younger version of myself for having the self-awareness to say, okay, well, if you don't like it, what are you going to do about it? So luckily Google existed when I was a young child. So I started searching, my body goals were people like Zac Efron, there were people like David Beckham. A lot of people when they start fitness, they're like, oh, my idol is Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was like, I would have been happy with a David Beckham physique. And it's, he's a very lean guy, but he's not a very muscular guy, right? So that's why the route I went down, just literally typed in Zac Efron diet, David Beckham diet. And then all of a sudden, I discovered that they were doing this high protein, low carb thing. That's all I heard everywhere. So I tried to patch it together the best I can. At that time, my parents were still cooking for me. I was still in school. So I went into my freezer, started reading the back of the nutrition labels. And I was like, okay, how do I calculate something to bring it up to 20 or 30 grams of protein? And I just slowly started making those shifts. And that's kind of where the nutrition side of it started. And I was like, okay, well, the nutrition is one part. I need to do some training as well because I was like Zac Efron workout program as well. And I didn't have access to a gym at that time, like most kids don't. So then I end up looking in my bathroom, seeing some shampoo bottles, getting started with the bicep curls with the shampoo bottles, doing dips on the side of the bathtub, planks on the bathroom stool. And I just did that for, days on end until eventually was old enough to get a gym membership. And that's pretty much where the story began. I started to see some changes within my physique with all of this stuff that I was able to put together. And I was inspired by it. And it really just manifested and built every single year from there on out.
Interesting, because this is the thing. Most teenage kids, okay, look, they'll be like, okay, if they went through the name calling again and go, okay, yeah, I need to change something about it. Yeah, they would do the sort of, okay, I've done the push-ups here and I've done this, and let's just say if the results don't come in, say 3 weeks time, yeah, I'm going to kick that into touch. But to sort of get that sort of drive to oh, okay, I need to have the idea of nutrition and protein and looking at the diets, what would be required. That's something slightly different. I don't know if you would agree with me or or you're like, oh no, that's just normal for everyone, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why I credit this 14-year-old version of myself. I don't know where he had the self-awareness to take those steps because of I didn't grow up in a nutritionally aware household. Obviously, my mom did her best to cook naturally and healthy, but as we know, naturally and healthy doesn't always mean in line with being in shape or having the body composition that you want. You can eat a ton of healthy food and be overweight. That's a reality. So that's what kind of I was growing up with. It was kind of convenience, and it was also the healthy foods that my mom had time to cook, which weren't exactly my favorite when I was younger. Now I love her cooking today, but when I was younger, when she was putting soups and vegetables and all that type of, because she grew up, well, she was vegetarian. So I grew up with her being vegetarian, but I wasn't super interested in her vegetarian meals that much. So I wasn't really too keen on that food. And I wasn't really too keen on the convenience foods because I knew what they were doing to my body. And that's where I was like, okay, well, something needs to change here. And I just was able to type those things into Google. And I think it was the fact that I saw the results from it as well. And I got really, really incentivized. And I think that that's the big thing with myself, my character, and my personality is that once I see that I have a blueprint that actually works, it makes me like very motivated and it makes things very easy for me to follow because I'm like, okay, I've got the formula. So all I have to do is the work. And the work to some degree is sometimes like easier than finding out the formula because the formula is sometimes the hardest part. So for me, I saw the byproduct of the work and was like, okay, let me keep going at this, keep going at this. And obviously the people in school started noticing, you know, there weren't that many 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds at that time going to the gym. So it gave me an edge that others didn't have. So I think I used that to my advantage. I enjoyed that. So that's why I kept traveling down that route. But yeah, I made some big changes in my lifestyle as a very young child because I was hanging out with my friends at the school gates. And instead I was like, okay, let's skip this part. I need to get to the gym when I did have a gym membership for the under 16 times that they were able to go. And I think it was between like 3 and 4:30 p.m. So I had to rush home from school to try and grab an hour in that gym before they closed that time frame down. So yeah, a lot of changes were made. So I do once again credit younger Elliot for that. I don't know where it came from, but we'll just take that as a gift that I was given in life.
Yeah, no, the one element I would add to what you said earlier, like I think some people don't actually understand, like there is the formula and there is like, yes, putting things into practice, but the true cost of what needs to be done for that formula and for like putting those things into practice, I sometimes feel that people are unaware of that price they would have to pay and what would be required on this sort of, not like you can't even say it's like, oh, once a week or a couple of it's like, yeah, on a day-to-day basis. And like, yeah, it can be quite hefty to like, you said Zac Efron, David Beckham. Look, these are like, okay, look, Zac Efron, let's put him to the side because he's had 1 or 2 problems himself recently, which has come up. But David Beckham, that's Premier that at his peak, Premier League footballer, training 5 days a week, like quite
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? God knows what his day like. God knows what his training schedule was like, just as a regular player, and God knows if he did anything on top of that. I don't know. One day, if I ever get to speak to him, I might be able to ask him those questions. You know, like
Absolutely.
So paying that price, people around you, did they actually understand or get it?
Not really. Obviously, when I first started, I kept it as a bit of a secret because I didn't really want to tell people what I was doing. I just wanted to like go do the work and kind of do Batman style. Bruce Wayne, you know, disappears. He comes back as Batman. That was kind of my intention. I didn't realize I was doing it Batman style until later in life, but that's kind of what it was. I was like, okay, let me not tell my friends where I'm going. I'm just going to skip the part where they see me at the school gates. I'm just going to head straight home. And then I just got to work in the gym. And then trying to understand, like trying to explain this to my family, I should say as well. At first, they were pretty understanding. They were like, okay, he's exploring something here. But then there was a point in which my mom and dad, I came home from school or something one day, and they were like, they just created me a large plate of pasta with cheese. And I was just like going nuts. I was like, where's the protein here? Like, where is my protein? They're like, you need a more balanced diet. And I was like, you don't get it. You know, my 15, 16-year-old self was like, you just don't get it. And I was trying to explain that obviously you need protein. What I'm doing in my nutrition is diverse in a way and it is healthy. And, you know, there's other things like my dad was like, you know, if I knew you were going to become a personal trainer, I probably would have been a little easier on you doing exercise and all that type of stuff. But they didn't really get it at the time. They were very understanding. They didn't ever stop me from doing anything, but they had their idea of what was healthy in their eyes. So they tried to lead me in that direction. But I was resilient. I was stubborn. I was continuing to do what I wanted to do. And luckily, you know, now we look back and laugh and they understand the career I've had off the back of that, you know, stubborn kid going down the route of what he wanted to. But yeah, to a degree, when I first started, no one really did understand. But it's kind of that whole thing of once you get through that process, is that at first people question you, but then they ask you, well, how did you do it? And that's kind of what happened, you know, a few years down the line. And obviously when I became a personal trainer, it all started to kind of adds up and all the puzzle pieces fit together eventually.
Yeah, because this is the thing. Parents are like they're just feeding you to make sure you stay alive and kind of like
Absolutely.
healthy as can be.
Yeah.
Like, but like this is the whole thing. Like you seem to like have a much better understanding of sort of like nutrition than I would say frig, maybe 70, 80% of the population as a 15-year-old, which is once again, it's kind of unusual. I think you've got like I won't lie. I think you might have a slight obsessional side to you, but that's another story. I will not go. But to sort of get that vibe, it's like, yeah, you're like going, right, this is what I need. This is what and free. Like when I was a kid, like look, it was like, yes, stewed chicken, rice, and now like
Yep.
that would be eaten for dinner, like sort of 4 or 5 times a night. Same portion. It was cheap. It was effective. You were like, my mum will look at me. Are you alive right now? Yes. Shut up. There you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
So with this, and like, yeah, would you like? How would you describe your sort of mindset? Would you describe it like? Would you say it's a balanced mindset, or is there like, yeah, hyper focus, or is it something else?
I would say I've gone through multiple phases and I'm also very different with my mindset and very different things as well. I think that, as you mentioned, there can be a little bit of an obsessive trait,
Mm,
which I don't see necessarily as a bad thing. I actually think it's been super advantageous for me in the many pursuits that I've had in my life. So I actually just need to make sure that I learn to not let it control me, but be in control of it essentially. And through the course of my life thereafter, fitness, health and fitness was my first obsession. I would say I'm super relaxed and balanced about it now. I train because I enjoy it, but I'm not, like, if I miss a workout, it's not the end of the world whatsoever. Same with my nutrition as well. I'm very relaxed about that. I do what I do I do what I need to do to stay in shape, but I'm happy to go out for a buffet with my girlfriend if she asks me in a few days. Like, I'm super relaxed about that. So I've kind of come full circle. I've come from zero knowledge to obsession to somewhere in the middle now. And
mm,
I'd say I've been kind of like that within my business pursuits, my podcast, and all those type of things as well. And I think, yeah, the shining light in this story is welcoming a girlfriend into my life, because if she was able to then, it's quite funny. When I met her, literally at the moment I met her, I just released a podcast saying why I don't believe in balance, and I was like, just don't listen to that episode. I recorded it like 2 or 3 weeks before I met you, and I was just like producing it. I didn't want to publish it, so I held myself back for a while. But then I published it, and I was like, "Have a listen, but just let you know that I did this 4 weeks before." So if you asked me that question last year, I would say that I'm hyper focused on everything that's important to me. But right now, fortunately, like, we're 1 year and almost a month later, and I have a much more kind of balanced look to my life. If people look to my life, they would still say it's not balanced, but I integrate far more of the soft edges than I ever did in the past, that's for sure.
I love those things where like, yes, you don't know it, but you've like poked the bear of fate in a way. So it's like, you know what?
Yeah, life throws it back in your face, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna get hyper focused with my career. I'm gonna make sure this is why there's no balance. It's like, wait a second, why did you just poke me? I'll have some of this.
Yeah,
Have some of that.
exactly that.
Brilliant, brilliant. So what made you go from okay, I'm a teenager who's like, Mom, Dad, I don't need just this pasta and cheese. Get me some more protein. To like
Mm-hmm.
going, hey, you know what? I've been running myself around like this gym and like lifting these weights and stuff like this. How can I inflict this on other people? What made you turn to the realm of the sadomasochists or personal trainers? Mm.
I'd say a lot of it come from the fact of seeing how much it did for me. On the outside looking in, it was just these external changes of no longer being the chubby kid, but it was more about what it did for my confidence in the process as well. It was almost like I was able to have something that I was truly good at and I was able to do very, very well in, which inspired me as a child. You start to like for that type of stuff. I was super, super into it. Like it wasn't something that I had to struggle to learn about. You know, the reason why I had so much nutritional knowledge is because I was super fascinated by it, right? It was that subject that I wanted to read about. I wanted to watch the YouTube videos about. So that's what I'd spend most of my free time as a kid doing. So eventually I was able to accrue all of this knowledge. I was able to apply it on myself, see these positive changes, see the way it was turning things around for me in terms of my personality. And, you know, I wasn't a shy kid. I was always quite a well socialized child, but there was just this another level. It was like I had this step up when I had my ability to take care of my body in that way. And I was like, you know, if I can feel this way, and I wasn't super certain on a career path, you know, teacher kind of crossed my mind quite a few times when I was younger. But then I knew that maybe I would want to maybe earn a little bit more and have the ability to, you know, maybe wear shorts when I worked all day, you know. So I was lucky enough to come across the idea of working in a gym. I knew that gym instructors didn't get paid that much. But then I was fortunate to, again, see something, a gift from life, which was that I was able to do this personal training course. And I was like, well, if I can skip the step of being a fitness instructor and go straight to helping people and also make some good money as a young child whilst doing it, based on this passion that I have, then I'm 100% going to go down this route. And it was a lot of it was inspired by the fact that I knew what he had done for me. And I was fortunate at the year, you know, 17, 18 years old to have not nailed health and fitness, but to have had a very, very solid idea of how this thing works and how I can make it work for me. And, you know, I work with clients today who are in their 40s, their 50s and 60s who still haven't worked it out yet. And I have a lot of compassion for these people. And I'm like, well, if I can give them something that helps them solve the challenge in their life, which is health and fitness for them, then it's my duty to do that in a way. And that's kind of the path I've traveled down. I recognize that I have a gift in this way. I'm a very good communicator. I'm a very good teacher in that sense. And now I'm a very, very good coach for the experience. And I was like, it would be almost not just for me to not travel down this route, especially considering how much I love this as well. So yeah, that was what it was. I saw how much it did for me. I saw the opportunity to help other people. I liked the idea because I wanted the potential career path of a teacher. So it all made sense. Once again, it all came together and it all just seemed to make sense. So I just traveled down that route.
Yeah. Would you describe yourself as very fortunate to basically, look, to somewhat find your purpose in life so early on? Because look, you mentioned other people, sometimes it takes 10 years, 20 years. Like some people, like, yeah, the death door and like, oh, I found my purpose. And like, you know what I mean? It's too late. But would you describe yourself as fortunate, lucky even?
I would say fortunate. I would definitely say fortunate in that sense that I was given this path in some sense. And obviously, like I'm very fortunate for the fact that I wasn't this kid with the six pack, you know, because if I was, I probably wouldn't have traveled down this route. And I also wouldn't have the same level of compassion that I can have to my clients. You know, I wouldn't want to be working with someone if I was 20 kilos overweight, who's never been overweight in their entire life. They've never experienced the feeling of feeling that way. So actually, yeah, I look back on all my experiences, good or bad. And to be completely honest, at the time, they might be really unpleasant to live through. But I would definitely say that I'm fortunate and grateful and blessed for every single experience that led me to talking to you today.
Ah, fantastic, fantastic. And like, I have to ask now, look, one of the things I think people don't realize in the game of personal training, like, yes, you fall into, depending which organization or which gym you go to, you either pay rent as a personal trainer or you use like, or it's time. Like, which one did you fall into? Did you have to pay rent as a personal trainer, or the third option, you were employed by the actual place itself? Which one did you fall
Yeah,
first got
I
started?
was I was never employed, and you know, I never realized that that was going to be my path. You know, once again, I think maybe a theme you might see in my life as well, that I sign up for these big things without really recognizing all that's involved. And by the time I've realized, I'm already like year or 2 years in, which turns out to be a good thing because I've got no choice but to follow through. So I had no idea that, you know, this path that I was going to go down was going to lead me to being self-employed at 17, 18 years old. I had no idea that that was going to be the case, but that's what it was. So I had to learn how to do a tax return. I had to learn, you know, to be self-employed, so to speak. And I thought I was just going to be a personal trainer. Yeah, I expected to be employed. I didn't really know how the system worked at the time. I just knew I wanted to do the personal training side of things. So when I got started in the LA Fitness that was in Oxford at the time. That was my first ever gym. It was very prestigious for me as well. I used to admire the trainers. They used to they walked around Oxford town in their LAPT t-shirts. And I was super inspired by them when I wasn't a PT, when I was on the outside looking in. So I landed this job at LA Fitness and they were like, okay, so you can do X amount of hours for us per week and you only pay a fraction of your rent. So this is a fourth option that we didn't have. It was a certain amount of hours plus a fraction of your rent, or you can go into full rent, and obviously you get your clients, you pay your rent based on the money you earn from your clients. So I went down the route of trading time and a little bit of money initially. And when you're in that position where you're not getting paid unless you're doing work, you're literally just paying your time and also having to worry about that rent at the end of the month. It forces you to sink or swim. And once again, another situation I didn't expect to be in, but at the same time, I'm fortunate for, because it led me to say, okay, well, I'm a really good trainer, or at that stage, I'm not actually. I'm only a newly qualified personal trainer. I'm not that good I don't really know how to train people properly yet. I have my qualification, but I don't have any experience. I'm a very passionate person about health and fitness. Now I have to really learn to be not only a really good trainer, but a marketer, a business owner, and all these different type of things that go along with running your own personal training business. So it was unexpected, but once again, these things work out for the best in the end.
Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things where, okay, I have never been a personal trainer. I've looked into it and everything like this, but like I've been around enough gyms to kind of know the different systems, what go around. And it's like, yeah, either which way, it's like it's a difficult path to choose if you go down the rent side and stuff like this. It's like, yeah, you do rent, yeah, you're kind of getting screwed because you need to get that money in on a regular basis. And seeing as you might be going up against God knows how many personal trainers in that one gym.
It was like 13 to 15 in my gym when I first started.
That's mad. You know what I mean? Dealing with a pool of maybe 1,500 people max to like try getting them in. That's crazy. But if you go with the time, it's like then you've lost that time where you could be actually training people. It's like you gotta go, oh, that option where you're like going, yeah, you give them time and money, you're like going, what on earth? What on earth? Like, so this is leading me into like, so what was the sort of straw that broke the camel's back to make you change ultimately from being a PT in a gym? Now you are out and about. You are free, sir, roaming the world as a nomad as sorts, digital nomad as sorts. So, yeah.
So what led me down that path was the limitations of one-to-one personal training. I loved everything I lived as a personal trainer. I gained an unbelievable amount of experience. I got to meet people from so many different walks of life. And I really grew up during that process. I really, really appreciate finding my purpose early, but at the same time, it does force you to grow up very quickly, especially when at the age of 18, you're running your own business, you've got rent to pay to the gym, and also you have this deep burning passion to help people as well. So you've got the purpose and you've also got the fire up your butt to pay the gym rent as well. So, it forces you to grow up very, very quickly. So I really value my time as a personal trainer. I spent, I want to say, between 5 and 6 years. I want to say about 6 to 7 even, as an on-floor, gym floor, on-floor personal trainer. And I felt that at that stage, I got everything that I needed from the gym floor. And I was also looking at how many people I could realistically work with per week. And you're looking at 40 to 50 hours. And that's a very, very good amount of hours as a personal trainer. If you're doing 40 to 50 genuine client sessions, that's incredible. But at the same time, if you work out the fact that most people are going to do between 2 and 3 sessions per week, you're not really going to be working with much more people than 20, max 25, depending on how many sessions they do. And for me, that was too limited. I felt, once again, I could probably reach more people. I could probably help more people. And I had this desire to as well. Like I had really, this is the reason why I started a YouTube channel in the first place. And all these different things I've done, I wanted to reach more people. I was like, I love the fact that this is where I've started, but if I only work with 25 people across the course of 6 months and then take on another 25 people and maximum work with 50 to 60 per year, it's just not enough. So I had to take that leap. And obviously, with that leap comes the freedom and many, many different benefits that come. But the big thing that inspired me to really go online initially was the people I wanted to reach around the world. I was only able to reach the people who went to that gym, who lived in that location, who I was able to fit in my diary. And all of a sudden, when I went online and I started coaching people, now I have clients in Kenya, I have clients in Dubai, I have clients in Spain, I have clients in the UK, I have clients all around the world. And that lack of limits and lack of boundaries is just incredible to me. And it just seemed like a more fitting way to take my career in terms of the next step.
I have to ask, like, with regards to, like, okay, you're a personal trainer, now you're on the digital platform. Like, what would you say was the sort of, where could you say you had the biggest amount of growth personally from personal trainer to what you are now?
So I worked with a online coaching company before I became fully self-employed again. So I had a few years of, a gym floor work where I was self-employed and then a little bit of employed work as a online coach. So I worked with this company for about a year. And I realized, and my ego was, popped like a balloon when I realized that online coaching is not the same as personal training. There's a big advantage to seeing someone and they can't hide from you, and, having that face-to-face conversation where people have to look you in the eye and tell you how they did with their week. All of a sudden, now it's behind email where people can just ghost you and they can just lie to you very easily because they're just typing and they don't really know you so well. So I had to learn the art of coaching again through this digital format. And 2, 3, 4 years down the line, I see it as actually a much more powerful platform than personal training. We discussed that in just a moment. But initially, I didn't know if it was going to work. Like, I didn't know if online coaching was going to be as effective. I also realized that I had to become an online coach. People think it's just, go from personal trainer to just doing it online. It's the same thing. It's very different, very, very different, especially if you want to be good. And this has always been, the moral dilemma, not really much of a dilemma, but my desire is to be a very, very good results-driven coach, not someone who's just going to take money and tick boxes. Like, that would be fairly easy and fairly unethical. But for me, I wanted to be a very, very good online coach. So I had to kind of strip the ego back. I was a very good personal trainer. Now I had to kind of start, not a scratch, but start relatively close to square one and say, okay, now I have to become a really good online coach. And that process was a big learning curve. And also there was a stage during that journey when I worked with the company where I had up to 115 clients. And that was a pretty insane learning curve considering I started at zero. And, it's a pretty huge amount of people to work with, whatever industry you're in. So those two things were probably the biggest learning curves: becoming a really high quality, world-class online coach from being just a personal trainer, and also managing such a high client load where the expectations to deliver results to every single person is very, very high.
Because, like, this is the thing. Yes, there's a difference between a PT and online coach. Can you describe what makes a good quality online coach? You said about people ducking you, like, because like email is one thing. It's like la 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 la.
Yeah, exactly.
Or ignore. Oh, it's gone to spam. But like, to go from 0 to 115 people, then like there is, like, not unless if it's trade secrets and you don't want to tell. Like, how would you describe you getting that skill set to move from 0 to like having a client base, which is almost 5 times bigger than what you would have got at, on a gym floor,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fortunate thing about what I did is that, imagine a typical online coach right now has between 30 and 40 clients. That's a successful online coach. If they stay with those clients for roughly 6 months to a year, they have the chance of seeing maybe 40, 50, maybe 60 max clients per year. I was able to see 115 in one moment with my roster. So I was able to use that kind of probably 2, 3 year experience that I had in just one hit of all those clients. So I was almost up leveled by the sheer volume of amount of people that I had, like just by opening one different email, I had a completely different set of circumstances. This client had a different lifestyle, had different goals, they had different challenges, they had a different way of working. And I open another email, and then there's another client who has a completely different set of circumstances. And I think that I was lucky enough. And, would I repeat that again, or would I advise anyone to do it? Probably, would I repeat it? Yes. Would I advise anyone to do it? No, because it's kind of like being thrown into the fire and just being like, once again, sink or swim here, do your best and see what happens. And luckily I was swimming, I was just like, that duck who seems like they're really calm on the surface of the water, but I'm just like this with my feet underneath. But realistically, I was just determined to make it work. So I think that was probably the most fortunate part, is that, an online coach who typically sees maybe 40 to 60 clients a year if they're lucky, I was able to see double that in just one moment. So that's what allowed me to become a much, much better coach. And then also I would say, from the side of actual coaching side of things, it allowed me to see different people. The formula of getting people into shape, in my eyes, is fairly simple. There's a lot of science that goes behind nutrition. There's a lot of science that goes behind fitness, and the principles are simple, but the application, especially trying to get someone else to do it, is very hard. And by going through so many different people, from experiencing the different challenges that they went through and finding solutions, and being able to not only just tell them what to do, but coach them through that, and be willing to be patient, and willing to be understanding, empathetic, to dig into the reasons why they're truly having these challenges, was the thing that made me a good coach. That genuine desire to help the person on the other end, and not just seeing them as a number. And then when you do that with, 2, 3, 400 people, by the time I finished my career at that specific coaching company, you come out with a lot of experience.
Yeah, because like this is the thing. Like, okay, look, 115 people. Jesus. Like, just the sort of work capacity alone is like mind-blowing. Plus with each person, like even if they are quote unquote fit and healthy, like each person's gonna have their own niggles and like different things, different dietary requirements. Like, how did you manage to organize your time with that? Can you describe like how you managed to manage that? Because that is mental.
Exactly. And if I'm honest, it was one of the main reasons why I eventually left the company, because that wasn't what I wanted to do on a long-term basis. I was living a very unsustainable lifestyle. It was either the choice of giving less to the clients I was working with, or giving less to myself. And every single time I chose less to myself, and realistically, I had to see, 20 to 25 clients check in every single day, Monday to Friday. I had to be available for their emails all week long. So I wasn't able to give myself the things that I needed to thrive as a human being. I compromised my sleep. At moments I compromised my training and my lifestyle, my mental well-being. And I didn't mind, like I did mind because it obviously had the impact, but I wanted to do these things. No one told me to take on those clients. They may have more than gently suggested it, but I was the one who said yes at the end of the day, because I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to, continue to help as many people as possible. But every single human has limits. And eventually it was getting to a stage where I was like, okay, this is not something I want to do on a long-term basis, because I don't want to compromise the quality to these amazing people. I want to give them everything I can. And I'm going to eventually run into a ceiling here with how many people I can help while still helping myself. So eventually at that stage, it was just a case of saying, well, actually, this is why I need to go my own way. I've learned so much from this company. I've recognized the things that I do like, the things that I don't. And now I'm going to create a company that I really align with, that does all the things that I truly wanted to do. And also I'm able to look after myself within the process as well, because of ultimately, when you're a business owner, you are your own ceiling. So if you're not looking after yourself, I tried to take on over 100 clients now, I wouldn't have a business, to be completely frank, or a girlfriend, as a matter of fact, or, any friends, to be completely honest. So, that's what it kind of came down to. So in terms of time management, I wouldn't say I was the best person to speak to about that, because I was able to just happily work from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. every single day, fit in a gym session between that time, go to bed, do the same again, and repeat and repeat and repeat.
Yeah. Would I be right in saying that in some respects, you leaving that company and starting your own business gave you the opportunity to just exhale and breathe?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like I remember the first day where obviously, my nature, I wanted to jump straight into the business because I was leaving that business. I wasn't phasing out. So, I was completely kind of employed by that company. Kind of, there's always blurred lines around employment when it comes to personal training, but I was getting paid from that company. So I went from X amount of money per month in terms of salary to zero, to start off my business because I was going from scratch. I wasn't able to phase out and do two at the same time because that company wasn't very keen on me doing that because of I was becoming their competition as soon as I left that company. So they weren't going to give me the most, beautiful and very, very kind phase out. They were like, okay, once you make your mind up, you're out of here. And it wasn't a case of me taking a bunch of clients with me. It was a case of them saying, we're going to try and keep as many of your clients as possible who will stay. So I was going from, this really like okay monthly salary to zero to start my own business. So obviously I needed to then reinvest my time in a different way to build my business. But I was no longer working from Monday to Friday, like once I had 10 clients, I was earning good money because it was all from, my business. But I was also able to say, well, I've just done 115. Even 50 doesn't seem like a lot anymore. So like you said, I had time to breathe. I was able to be a bit more creative. When you're doing that, you only have time to be a coach. You only have the time to respond to your clients. You have the time to post on social media or, explore podcasts. So it was a beautiful opportunity because not only like in a way, the work remained the same in terms of my commitment to those hours, I was able to just do a bunch of different things. And as you've mentioned, just breathe a little bit more.
Ah, interesting. Interesting. Because like this is the thing, like, okay. Now, like PT, online coach, like, yeah, podcast host, like YouTuber. And like this is like with you starting this business and like, yeah, are you still trying to like find who you are? Even though like you had the PT and everything, fitness in early on, but are you still trying to find out more about yourself? Is there kind of this air of mystery you're trying to work out currently?
Absolutely. I think I have a pretty firm sense of who I am, but I'm also highly aware that that can change on a month to month and a year to year basis. And in a way, it also needs to. You want to go through life developing different traits and different ways of being, and your experience shapes you into being a different person. At least I believe so anyway. The idea of staying exactly the same and being who I am today in 10 years' time frightens the life out of me, to be completely honest, because of me, that would show no sign of progress. So I know that Elliot last year is different to Elliot today, and Elliot next year will be completely different as well. So every single day, every single week, and every single month of my life, I want to learn more about myself. I want to grow in many different ways. And that is something that, even though I have allowed more soft edges and balance into my life, is still something that I'm very, very dedicated to. So I think there's an element of knowing who I am fundamentally, but also, and knowing my values that really helps me understand who I am, but also at the same time being very, very aware that the next level of life is going to ask for different things of me. So I'm going to have to discover more of me and learn more things and become something else in order to show up and be ready for those things that life is going to put in front of me.
Mm. So tell me, what does traveling Elliot, digital nomad Elliot, what have you learned being that Elliot over the course of time?
Yeah, that Elliot's had quite an adventure, to be completely honest. It wasn't necessarily what I was expecting. I'm now I'm coming up to the third year of doing this now.
Mm.
So I started in the pandemic, so it was a little bit limited in terms of where I could travel, but still that
No,
sense of
really?
freedom. Yeah, exactly. So I left in June 2020, probably just after the first wave when the UK lockdown lifted and some countries were opening up, and that was my moment. I was like, I'm ready to get out of here because if I don't, maybe I'm not going to be able to leave for another couple of years. So I took that jump, and like I said, coming up to 3 years now, and learned a lot along the way. And I think the big thing is just experiencing the freedom as being amazing. And the second aspect is also kind of giving yourself the life that the past version of yourself would have dreamed of, or maybe wouldn't have even been able to comprehend it. Sometimes I take, and I'll be honest, there are certain moments where I take this lifestyle for granted. And I really do try to ground myself at times to remind myself, like, if you told this to 18-year-old Elliot, he would have been like, you're a rock star. Like, this is super, super cool. This is everything that you would have ever wanted. But some days I wake up and I'm like, just another scenery. So I have to do a very, very good job of maintaining being grounded, being grateful for the life that I've been able to create for myself, and also not having any ties to a single place. And so that's taught me a lot. And I did like the first stage of this on my own. And then my girlfriend has joined the adventure since last year. Literally this time last year, she started traveling with me. And that's brought another new set of circumstances in terms of how you balance a thriving relationship with a thriving business and all these personal and business goals. And I think that we've done an amazing job at adapting and, merging our lives together. But it's not easy. You face it's a beautiful, amazing opportunity to live this lifestyle, but it's not free of challenges, that's for sure. Especially, like I said, I want a thriving business. I want to thrive as a human being. I'm not just looking to, I'm not going to sign off this podcast today and just go and sip pina coladas on the beach. Like, I'm going to get back to work, So a lot of the time it's more about, okay, the location is amazing, but I still work the same amount of hours Monday to Friday, the weekends as everyone does. This past weekend, my girlfriend and I worked all of Saturday. We only had Sunday, so it's like, that's the reality of the situation. So I think the biggest things have just been that freedom's been amazing, learning how to really thrive on all fronts, but whilst trying to also enjoy the lifestyle that you've chosen for yourself has been some big learnings, but a lot of blessings at the same time as well.
No, I hear you. I like that. And you know what I mean? Like, this is the thing. Like, unorthodox lifestyle, and like, this is like, when I hear digital nomad and everything like this, it's normally accompanied before a YouTube video I want to watch and someone trying to sell me a course.
Exactly.
Yeah. But this is the thing, like, doing this and like going ahead. I have to ask, how many countries have you been to so far in your 3 year tenure?
I'd maybe say on average is probably like between 6 and 8 per year. So we're probably about 20 or so now. If not, we're coming up to 20 this year. Because sometimes I do some like shorter, like longer stays. I like the like the slow travel. I like to stay in a place for a decent amount of time. So my first longest stay in 2020 was Lisbon, and I spent 3 months there. I was very, very happy there as well. So yeah, I've probably done coming up to 20 this year, I think.
I see. What part of the world is your lady from?
She's from Mexico. She's from Mexico City, actually. She only lives 10 minutes away from where we're staying right now. So that's why we're in this location at the moment.
Okay. So this is the thing. Things are going well with your lady. This must really going to get you into a little bit of hot water. Like, things are going well with your lady. And like, we fast forward down like a few years. And yes, like, the digital, I'm not saying the life is not going to be the life for you anymore, but it's a case of, you want to put down roots. Would it be a case of you will pick somewhere completely different? Would you come back to the UK, or would you stay in Mexico? How does that kind of look to you, or are you not even like paying attention to that much down the road at this present time?
Yeah, no, we have plans. We have some pretty solid plans in place. If you asked me a year ago, I would have been like, I have no idea where I'm going to land. A lot of this traveling thing was like, let me find somewhere that really, truly feels like home and ticks all the boxes that I want for my life. I love the UK, and I'm sorry to say it again, but the weather for 5 months out of the year is just like, it's a no-go for me. It's too much. And I used to think that, like staying in a, tell me.
Come on, Elliot. It makes you hard. Come on.
So I love the UK, I really do. But for a long-term home, I just didn't see it as being that way. And also, considering I had the opportunity to try so many different countries, I was like, okay, let me just find the one that fits the most for me. And that's kind of what I was doing during the traveling. But since my girlfriend has arrived in my life, and since we've started to put some solid plans in place, we still want to live this type of lifestyle for the next coming years or so. But we're comfortable and confident that we're going to find a real solid place for ourselves. We've started to see some places that we can see as being home. So we're, laying down those roots eventually. But right now, we're just enjoying the freedom and flexibility that this lifestyle gives us. And we're also only, 1 year into this. I'm coming into my 3rd year. And I would say that some things start to grate on you after a while, like living your life out of the suitcase. It gets a little bit challenging sometimes, but I'm still excited and I'm still enthusiastic about it. And she's injected even more life into this. So we know that we're going to do it for another couple of years, and then eventually we'll find our space, but still be available to travel, even if we do have children and everything along those lines. That's very much in our intentions.
Well, you said the C word, like I can hear her ears prick up. That's like now. Like, that's good. I like it. But like, okay, I have to ask. Now, look, being a coach and everything like this, what made you go, you know what? I want a YouTube channel. Because that is, hey, it's different, but you know what I mean? Yeah, it's different. But why a YouTube channel?
I think the first ever YouTube channel I started, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, I do still have the videos, but it doesn't exist on an online platform anymore, was purely off that thing that I mentioned. The reason I went online, I wanted to reach more people. I had many people who weren't necessarily my clients in the gym. They're like, Elliot, what do you eat? Elliot, how do you train? Elliot, how do you do this? And as much as I love to speak to people, eventually you're like, well, how many times am I going to repeat myself, per day? And also, how many times can I say this to different people? So I was like, okay, well, rather than having to tell everyone, why don't I just create a YouTube channel where I show everyone what I eat, where I show everyone how I train, and I show everyone my, my knowledge and my expertise. So that's where I got started on that. I wanted to reach more people once again. And also those people asked me the questions in the gym, which made me think, okay, well, people want to know the answers to these questions. So YouTube is kind of a search engine to a degree. So let me put on as much content as. Since then, I've had this on and off. I've kind of centered on is the kind of leg of my business, let's say.
Oh,
I think I lost you.
yes, you're back now. Uh,
Where did you lose me?
like basically, getting in contact with like other client, like potential other people who wouldn't be necessarily your clients. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll keep going from there. So
Yep.
essentially, that was where the YouTube journey began, and it's been kind of an on and off relationship with YouTube since there. Whether it be down the route of vlogging, whether it be down the route of giving just fitness advice, and now I've kind of settled on actually three kind of ideas. My podcast has a YouTube channel, so that's the one area which I share a lot of my stuff. The other is I actually have a joint channel with my girlfriend where we share our travels, and then we have a third channel which is purely a workout channel, which is kind of another branch of my business in the sense of saying, okay, there's going to be a lot of people out there who might not be my client, but there's going to be a lot of people out there who still want to work out and also want to be able to work out from home. So there was a moment where, once again, my girlfriend loves these home workouts. She had her favorite fitness YouTuber who she would follow all the time. And I was like, I didn't realize how viable this was. So I started looking into it and I realized there was no men in that space who are really making a statement in terms of creating these online workouts. So I was like, okay, there's a space to be filled and I can fill it. And it's funny, I would have thought it would have been something I would have done at the start of my career. But then I was like, no, why not? So I've now also got a YouTube workout channel, which is like, I don't speak at all. I literally just do the exercises. I tell you the name, I give you the timer, and I let you follow along and work out with me, essentially. And those are the kind of the routes that I've gone down. And I just find YouTube as a platform which I can just spread the word of whatever I want to speak about in a very organic way. And that's why I love that platform. It gives me a home for vlogs. It gives me a home for workouts. It gives me a home for podcasts. So I've just seen it as an extension of who I am and an extension of my businesses as the years have gone on as well.
Yeah, no, this is the thing with in the realms of working out, like Jesus, like when it comes to online, well, when it comes to YouTube, especially, like yoga with Adrian, you might have heard of her. Basically this lady who lives in Austin, Texas, she does these yoga like routines, 1 to 30 day programs. And look, all I've got to say is I knew nothing of this lady until about 2, maybe 3 years ago. And like, yeah, my lady loves her. And like, yeah, all of her friends love her and stuff like this. And she's like in on it, regular basis. Can't even get away from it. I think she's even like she's branched out away from YouTube in some respects. She still does content from here, but she's got her own app. So it's like, yeah, it gives you an idea of some of the possible scale which can be done with a platform like YouTube. And I think, you know what, in this sort of day and age, upskilling is easier on a platform like YouTube. It might have to fight a little bit to get that attention, but once you've got it, the possibilities are quite broad, I would say, you know?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I think it's one of the only platforms that offers a very transparent way of monetizing your platform versus all the other social platforms, which really don't show you any route of doing that. So from that perspective, it gives you a platform to be super organic, and it also gives you a transparent way of earning some money as well off the back of that, if you do, like you said, reach that scale.
Yeah. No, speaking of platforms, like now, what, like, I know you've got Instagram, I know you've got like your YouTube. Like, are you like sort of moving away for something like Instagram, seeing as it's becoming definitely more, it's been pay for play for a little bit of time on that. But now it's becoming a little bit more so. Well, not even a little bit more so with like, yeah, the Facebook, the Meta verification. Thank you, Elon Musk, for like bringing in that new bit of nightmare into the world. But yeah, do you think you are going to stick with a like platform like that, or is it a case of you're going to be looking elsewhere, or is not your primary sort of way of generating business?
Yeah, right now I don't see them as mutually exclusive. Like, I see no harm in providing content for those who are active on that platform. And I do have a pretty active audience on Instagram. Whether they see my content is a completely different story. But what I would say is there's still a lot of people who are ready to consume the information I'm putting out. And you look at some of the reach of the certain videos that you put out, and you also, like, I've had this moment in the past where I had a call with someone who wanted to sign up to the coaching program that I do. And she was like, I absolutely love your Instagram content. I was like, I've never seen a single like on any of my posts from you. I didn't say it to her, obviously, but that's what I thought. And I was like, so it's not just necessarily looking about, well, how many plays did I get on my reel today? Or how many viewers did I get on my story? How many likes did I get on my post? Because behind there's a lot of people who are not actually engaging, but they are consuming. So I think I would be missing out a lot, because of my main mission is to spread the word far and wide. You know, if I feel that I've got something that's pretty wise, I hope, and going to be helpful for the person on the other side of the screen to listen to, I want to promote it. And Instagram is still a very big platform from that perspective. And I find that if people want to listen to you, they'll find you. But that doesn't stop me from putting out, stuff on YouTube. It doesn't stop me from putting out things on podcasts. My podcast is probably the main place where people listen to me in terms of Apple and Spotify and everything along those lines. So I think it's a case of saying, okay, find out which platforms that you want to be on that really reward you for being on there, but also don't underestimate all the other platforms. Like, for me, I'm not a consumer of Facebook. For me, like, Facebook, I have the thing on my Facebook where you can get rid of your feed. It's called a feed eradicator, actually. So I don't actually use Facebook to look at anyone's stuff. I go on there to post stuff because I know that there's still people on there who want to consume the stuff that I put out. And they might not be on Instagram because they're of a slightly older generation. So for me, considering I'm not a consumer of Facebook, I could have neglected it. I was like, it's not important to me anymore. I was like, no, I'm going to keep my profile active to post, but I'm not going to be a consumer because I don't really have much interest in Facebook. So I think I never want to underestimate these platforms. And I also think they're still free. There's still attention on there, and there's still people who have the opportunity to listen to something and take value from my content. So I think it would be, a little bit pretentious of me to assume that I'm above that platform and just like, forget Instagram. Like, I'm too good for this. I don't want to be going down that route if there's still people who are there with open ears.
Right. Yes. Instagram. Yes. It's for the peasant classes these days. Now, you mentioned your podcast. Like, when did you get started with your podcast?
So I launched the podcast on November 1st, 2020. So we're coming up to the third year this year. And I would say that I officially started the podcast when I read this PDF on how to get 100,000 downloads on your podcast. And as soon as I saw that, it was at the moment I left this last company as well. And I was like, I really want to I really want a platform. I love podcasts. Like I still do. I consume them a lot. They're probably my favorite form of content. Like, again, I don't align too much with Instagram content or TikTok content. Like, my favorite in the past was YouTube, and my favorite currently, I would say, is podcasts for sure. So I was like, I love listening to these. I'm a massive consumer. And I want to do this. I want to have conversations with awesome people. And this, again, I can't put out a 5-minute video on Instagram and expect people to stay. I can put out, as you know, a 90-minute podcast, and people may listen to, even if they listen to 10% of that 90-minute podcast, they've still listened to more than my 5-minute Instagram video, So that's the way that I think about it. It's like, you're not asking people to hold their attention. They're coming with their attention, like in Instagram, you're like, bring your attention with you. To podcast, I feel like people are already bringing their attention because they're aware they're about to listen to a conversation. So that platform for me was like, I love to talk. I've got a lot to say, and I want to be able to have these conversations with amazing people and have, another platform that's just a little bit different compared to what's within the atmosphere right now, which is kind of short film, 30 seconds, keep people's attention, move on. A podcast is not that. I know that I've watched podcasts from minute zero to, if I'm watching a Joe Rogan podcast, 3 hours and 20 minutes. Like, I've watched and consumed 3-hour podcasts. So I was like, this is a perfect platform. So I got started with that. And it's been a beautiful journey, to be completely honest. I wouldn't say there's been an enormous amount of ups and downs. It's not been smooth. It's definitely been a lot of work. But at the same time, it's been very, very giving. And when you talk on return on investment, when it comes to social platforms, the way the podcast has performed has been very, very, generous in terms of what is given back to me compared to what I put in. But we're on, episode, and actually, thank you so much for having me on your 300th episode. That's a real privilege. But yeah, today, I think we've reached about 365 or something, and you know what type of work that requires to create that many podcasts. So yeah, it's been a pretty incredible journey, but that's where we stand as of today.
Wow, fantastic. 365. Awesome. So tell me this. Did you get to that 100,000 downloads?
Yes, absolutely did. I set myself a goal. So there was a moment last year where I had a talk with a business mentor. I was lucky enough to have a conversation with him. It was just a one conversation. He was like, I was talking to him about the podcast. Like, it's making some really good growth. It's making. And I asked him the question of like, well, what would you do? He's like, are you familiar with the podcast, The Daily Stuff, as an author? And I like his podcasts as well. He's like, well, he puts out these. Did you catch me?
You broke for a moment there. You mentioned daily, and then that's when you cut.
Perfect. So The Daily Stoic is the podcast, and it's done by an author called Ryan Holiday, who I'm a big fan of. And he was like, well, he's got this daily podcast, and he puts out these, 6 to 10 minute pieces of content every day. And the guy said to me, the business mentor, he was like, well, when Ryan released his book, it was like a no-brainer to me. This guy's a part of my daily routine. So I'm going to potentially just think about pre-ordering his book without even thinking about it. And I was like, that's interesting. He's like, have you ever contemplated daily? I was like, no, but once you say something like that to me, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to start doing this. And then last year, where are we? 2023. So 2021, in fact, I was like, okay, I'm going to set out on this daily podcast and I'm going to see how it goes. And I think that is probably going to have a good chance of increasing my downloads, because of the downloads per episode are fairly similar. So unlike different platforms, where you maybe put out a video and it doesn't get the same amount of reach. For a podcast, I find that if you get 100 downloads for one episode, then you're going to get 100 for another. So I was like, okay, if I'm getting 200 downloads at the moment, 200 times 6 more is going to be pretty favorable. And that's what I did. I did a stint of daily podcasts for 196 days, definitely worthwhile. And yeah, eventually ended up hitting, roughly around the 100K mark at the back end of that. So it was just maybe a little bit into year 2, because it was about 14 months later, and I managed to hit the 100K mark, and it was very, very gratifying indeed.
So for the 192 consecutive daily episodes, how long were your podcast episodes for that?
So I did 6 solo podcasts a week, and they were between 6 and 12 minutes long, those 6 per week. And then I kept with 1 guest per week as well. So an interview just like this one, anywhere between 60 to 90 minutes. So that was the kind of consecutive trend of those, 1 guest podcast, and then 6 to 12 minute long podcasts every day.
Blimey. This is the thing. People don't actually get how much sort of the work rate you've got to put into doing a podcast. They think, yeah, oh, you just record, you just have like you either do it yourself, you speak to someone. Oh, it's easy.
Not so much.
It's like because people don't understand there is like having a conversation. People talk all the time. They don't actually realize there is a bit of a craft. It's a skill to have
Yeah.
a conversation between two people. So they don't get that side of it. And it takes a long time to work, hone that sort of skill. So you can like, okay, chat away on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're talking by yourself, that's even sometimes a harder skill because yes, like those thoughts and little demons which come into your head, like at God knows what time, or just like nothing goes into your head at all while you're sitting there. You know, like you go, oh, it might be 12 minutes, but you may have been sitting there for an hour or two, like, what should I say? What am I like? I've got the plan, I've got everything written down. But people don't realize how much hard work it is. And like the sort of like the typical number, they go, there's 4 million podcasts out there in the world right now. But that's like, no, there isn't. It's a case of most people will do 3 to 4 podcasts and they're done. And to sort of get into, I think, the higher percentages of podcasts, you need to just record 21 episodes. And
Yeah, I've heard that stat, yeah.
it's not a lot, but yeah. So
There's a reason why many people don't do it, right? It's a reason why that number is so low, yet it's not reached that much.
Yeah. And I think it's just a case of people don't understand the commitment or not willing to make that commitment to it all, because it will be a long time sometimes before it actually gives back anything to you, if it does at all. So, you know what I mean? There's times where it's like, okay, is it like the knowledge I gain from speaking to people like yourself on a regular basis, it's helped me over the course of the years I've been doing this, grow and become a better person. It's kept my mind open to other realms of possibilities, and yeah, just kept me fresh in the way of my thoughts rather than being like chiseled into like place, petrified in stone, if you get what I mean. I don't know if that's
absolutely
yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's always going to be value to having conversations. Like, absolutely everyone has something to offer you. And especially when you're going to be speaking to someone on a podcast, you're going to talk to someone with a story. You're going to talk to someone who has an area of expertise. And that's the beauty of the podcast. You know, people don't realize is that if I ask this person for an hour of their time, they wouldn't give it to me if I didn't have a podcast. You know, they might be kind enough to give me 5 minutes or a quick DM, but I can reach out to many, many popular figures within the fitness industry, the personal development industry, and there's still a way to go in reaching a lot more people, but they're happy to sit down and talk to me for an hour to 90 minutes, just like I am with you today, because I have a platform and that I'm able to share those words of wisdom and that message. So you get an opportunity to speak with some incredible minds. You get to improve your skill in terms of the art of conversation, which you mentioned earlier as well. And I don't think even a conversation with a barista in a coffee shop is a waste of a conversation. I love the art of conversation. So when I get the opportunity to do it on a podcast with a very intelligent person or someone with an incredible story, you know, it's a privilege, and it definitely has sharpened my mind. So I can definitely relate with you on that one.
Yeah, indeed. Like I have to ask, like with regards to yourself, like being like very eloquent fella, like have you ever considered like going into the realm of public speaking by any chance?
Yeah, it's definitely been on my radar. I think the thing with myself is that I need to get very clear on the things that I want to do, because I actually set myself a New Year's resolution this year, which was not to take anything more on, because I'm someone who takes on projects and takes on projects and takes on projects. And as much as I would love to give 110% to all of them, I'm one human, you know, and I'm slowly but surely beginning to accept that. And, you know, with all the other things I want to balance in my life, like being a good partner, being a good family member, being a good friend, you know, that comes with time and energy that you have to give to other places. So my goal this year was to not take anything else on and just focus on the projects that I've got going on. But I see no reason at all why that can't be a big part of my future. And it's definitely on my radar. I think that, if you think about it from a podcasting perspective, I'm speaking to a very large platform. I just don't see them at the moment. So what's the difference between taking away the webcam, taking away the microphone in front of me and standing on a stage and doing it in front of a microphone instead? So I definitely see that on the radar in the future. But if anyone wants to book me for a speaking gig, like I probably would take the opportunity, but I probably should push it off until next year based on that New Year's resolution.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. Now, I have to ask. Now, apart, you've taken on a New Year's resolution not to do anything extra this year, but and like yes, like there potentially might be settling down and living in Mexico and like yes, raising one or two rugrats out there. So, what would you like the sort of shape of your journey be in the next 5 years?
In the next 5 years, there's many, many different things I want to achieve. And it's very exciting. It's a super exciting period in my life. I feel like I'm still very much on the climb, but I still feel like every single day it's one step up the ladder, one step up the ladder. And, I am blessed to have a woman by my side who's, stepping up a ladder alongside me now as well. We're climbing different, let's say, professional ladders, but we're also climbing that collective ladder of what we want our lives to look like as a future family as well. So it's a beautiful place for me to be right now. And I would say in terms of the shape I want to take it, I would say that growth is probably the most important thing. I never really put a complete black and white definition of what that looks like, but growth in every area that I decide to commit to is the most important thing. One big thing for me is further reach, getting into the ears of more people in regards to health and fitness and also personal development as well. You probably tell by this conversation today, it's not just about health and fitness with myself. Like coaching people means that you're working with mindsets, you're working with people's personalities, and you can't just tell them to follow a diet plan and a training plan and hope for the best. You need to coach people. So, that mindset piece, that personal development piece has been really important to me. So in terms of those next 5 years, it's going to look like a lot of growth. It's going to look like for the time being, focusing on the projects that I have truly committed to myself to, but also looking at other projects for the future, taking those on, climbing the ladders with those. And then as in regards to my relationship, like I said, continue to travel the world with my girlfriend, eventually finding a place to settle, creating a family and inspiring people through our relationship as well. That's something that we're both very passionate about. It's not just about kind of living a relationship where two people come together and they're just trying their best to, live synonymously and synergistically. It's a sense of saying, okay, we want like this passionate, like super, super abundantly filled, loving relationship. And that's what I aim to do with a relationship as well. It's not just a case of ticking the boxes of getting a house, getting children, everything like that. I want our relationship to thrive every single year and grow every single year. So thriving and growth are probably the two words to represent every single area of my life moving forward. And that's the aim.
Excellent. Because like this is the thing, growth, like at this moment in time, from like someone who is a one-man band operation, like yes, growth, that means to me, yes, building a team. Growth means like, yeah, putting like bigger systems into play, which just means additional people. And like, yeah, moving from what you are now to what you can be. And like, what do you think would be one of the sort of main challenges to potentially growing that team for you in the future? Or is that something you've not really thought about yet?
Yeah, it's absolutely. And I've had experience with having a team within my coaching program in the past. And I think the biggest thing that you have to get in place is trust, and that's probably the hardest things I have in place, especially when you've created these things from the ground up and you start to have to give responsibility to other people and you have to trust them to do it in the way that the best of their abilities can take them. Because I was about to say in the way that you would do it, but no one could do it in the way that you would do it. Otherwise, you would just be a clone of you. And that's not the reality. As much as I'd like to clone little Elliots and get them to work on the business, that'd be amazing, but I can't do that. So it's just going to be a case of, putting trust into people. And then also being a manager, that was my big experience of bringing people into the coaching team as well, is that, again, you've taken on a different hat. You're no longer kind of that day-to-day coach. Of course you are, but you're also now a manager. You're a team leader. You need to inspire your team. You need to be making them keen to learn, to give, as much as they possibly can. And, there's only so much you can do that. So it's a different level of responsibilities that you have. So I know that that's going to force me into another area of growth, to be making sure that I'm inspiring the team that I have, and to make sure that they are getting the care and attention that they deserve, and also enjoying everything that they're doing as well, right? I feel like if you've got happy people who are fulfilled, who are getting paid enough as well, then there's not really much reason why these people will, unless they've got obviously these other desires to create their own business and everything. But you could probably keep a lot of people happy for many, many years. So I think that that's the big thing. It's just about getting the right people in place. And that's a big challenge in itself, placing enough trust in them, listening to them, making sure that they're happy. And, I say it and lay it all out like it's super simple, but the implementation of that, especially when it goes from one person to two people to three people and beyond, that I imagine presents a challenge in itself.
Fantastic. Now, my last question of the evening, of the afternoon for yourself. Yeah. Now, if there was one person you could like have a conversation with for the afternoon to get a pearl of wisdom or two, who would that one person be?
Oh, that question is not something I contemplate too much, to be completely honest. Can they be alive? Do they have to be alive, sorry, or can they be past?
They can be alive. They can be like, it could be from the past. They could past, but like, yeah.
I would potentially go down the route of speaking to my grandmother who passed, like when I was much, much younger, and have a conversation with her as my adult self, and also ask any other questions that potentially my family had that maybe never had the opportunity to do so, and just get the insights from her that maybe I wasn't old enough to get at that time, and just understand the story of my family a little bit more. I think that would probably be it. I was thinking maybe I'd go down the route of asking someone sets of wisdom and everything along. I think there's a as well that opportunity to speak to and take the wisdom. And there's also myself I can love. But when the story they have passed, we unfortunately get the opportunity in this lifetime. So I think that's the route I would go down.
Okay. No, very nice, very nice. Like, yes, I shall see if I can make that happen for you. Don't freak out if it happens one day. There you go. My power is complete. But yes, yes, Elliot, can you tell people how they can find you out there on these interwebs?
Of course I can. So there's a few places you can find me. The first is going to be my Instagram, which I'm still very active on. I'm not pretentious in not being on there right now. So that's at Elliot Hasoon. The other place that you can find me is the Simply Fit podcast, as episodes twice a week on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere you can find podcasts. And the final place to find me is the workout channel on YouTube. You just simply search my name. It's Elliot Hasoon. It's 2 L's, 1 T, and 1 S, 2 O's, just to get that clear. And you can expect weekly videos of just workouts from all the way from 5 minutes to 20-minute workouts, even 30-minute workouts you can just follow along with. So plenty of content and plenty of material to get stuck into. And yeah, I appreciate you having me on the show today. Really, really do, Miwa.
It was a delight and pleasure to have you on today, Elliot. Thank you for coming on. Thank you indeed. Yes.
Thank you.
Aha. And I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for sticking with us to the end of the show. Please stay well, stay safe, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic. Be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. Have a great day, guys. And yes, keep moving forward. Peace. And we are...